Happy Friday and welcome to the Forward Miami show. We have a great show for you today. If you don't know what Forward Miami is, we're a nonprofit in Miami-Dade County. We work on issues involving diversity and inclusion and having those tough conversations that everybody avoids. Nobody wants to have them. They run away. We don't on the Forward Miami show. To my left is JC, Jonathan Casanas, co-host, board member of Forward Miami, and entertainer extraordinaire, as I've labeled you.
Keep doing that.
And social media influencer, and I could go on, but I won't. And JC, I'm going to let you take.
Well, thank you for that introduction. And your batteries are on 100 today. I love it. I love
it. Caffeine does that.
No, but this is going to be a good episode because today we have Terry Dyer, who I'm proud. I think we're friends. I'm proud to call my new friend. We have so much in common, by the way. I'll let you introduce yourself. But Terry is a beautiful singer. The reason we met actually is because I sang at one of his events. It was the karaoke. Yes. And then he invited me to sing at another event. So we have that in common. But not only that, professionally, he's actually a recruiter. You're a talent acquisition manager. I am also a talent acquisition manager.
You're twins. We're like those little kids.
I am literally I am the smaller, stockier Latin version of you. I think we're twinsies. We're twinsies. No, but thank you for being here, Terry. Terry is actually the development director of Sunserve. They do amazing here in South Florida. I'm glad that they brought you on because you've been lighting up South Florida with your wonderful events. But yeah, introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Again, so thank you so much for having me. It's such a pleasure to be here. I've watched some of your episodes in the past, so I'm super excited to have a great conversation today.
Good.
Impactful conversation.
Yes.
So yes, for those that don't know, my name is Terry Dyer, and I have been in South Florida for about 1.5 years from San Francisco, California. And I recently joined the Sunserve family and trying to make sure that we continue to serve the LGBTQ community with mental health services, social services, and continue to uplift our community in so many ways. I am a best-selling author as of last month as well. Written the book Letters to a Gay Black Boy, which is a memoir sparking conversations around racial injustice and inequality and all those sorts of things. So I'm again super excited to be here. It's a little about me.
I love that. So talk about this book. So this book came out during the pandemic, yes?
It did. Yes.
So was this process already before the pandemic?
Yes, I started the book in November of 2015.
Oh, okay.
And of course, like you just mentioned, I tend to be a busy guy.
Yeah, I noticed. I noticed.
Yes. With my talent acquisition background for years and working in corporate America, I've also been an athlete my whole life. So I've traveled all over playing sports. And so that's kind of taken up majority of my time.
Yeah.
And then pandemic hits and, the company that I relocated here with laid me off, unfortunately. And I said, well, we need projects. I need things to do in my condo by myself. So, we started a book. Let's finish the book. So a few months later, it completely took off, and I couldn't be more grateful.
That's amazing. And I want to talk about the book, but also let's talk about all the things that you've been involved with, because, not only, fine, yes, you're a talent acquisition manager, obviously client services and program management, all of that comes with recruiting.
Yes.
But you also work for Stop Age Project, and you were named the African American Person of the Month, which was amazing. But you were also you were jumping a little back and forth, as I noticed, because you also were in Utah and San Francisco and South Florida. Yes. And with all of that, you were volunteering a lot of your time. Where did you find all this time to volunteer? Because I'm doing it and I'm stretching myself way too thin here.
Yes. Yes. I feel like the both of us are probably people that don't know how to use the word no a lot. And I don't sleep. That's
right.
Generally, and still look young. So.
Yes, man.
Honestly, I'm a firm believer, and we're all here for a purpose. And I think over the last few years, I have truly realized that my purpose is to help the community and help others, that speak for those that don't have voices, and really sort of step out and step forward for our community. So that's what I've been trying to do.
Terry, is that why you think your book took off the way it did? I mean, I was curious as to why do you think it was so broadly popular?
Yeah, I really do believe, it was a blessing in disguise that, BLM and Black Lives Matters and everything was happening last summer. but no one was truly speaking out for the Black LGBTQ community. And when my book came out, it was sort of like, well, wait, don't forget about us. We also experience these sorts of issues internally and externally. So we need to be having a conversation around that. And I think it was also time for us to sort of, as a community, step up and say, hey, I've experienced this, I've gone through this, I need to draw attention to this, etc. So that's exactly what
like what exactly? What do you want someone to take away from this book mostly?
That we need to have more conversations and address the real true issues in our society and in our community. That includes mental health issues, that includes homelessness, that includes, molestation and rape and family issues and all those things that we tend to like to sweep under the rug. We need to have conversations. That's how we're able to move the needle forward as a society. So I draw attention to all of that in such a raw, authentic, and honest way that you can't help but to say, wow, this resonates with
that's why we call it the Forward Miami Show, because the only way to really move forward is to deal with a lot of those issues. What do you think is the number one biggest issue like that? It's just
that's a great question. I think we like to pretend that racism doesn't exist, and I think that's a problem. I think it's been around forever. A lot of people, of my friends and family in California, all over really, reached out to me, during summer of last year and say, well, I just want you to know that I support you and I stand with you. And, you're not really vocal about this. And I said, one of the things that I hope people realize is my fight started 40 years ago. I just turned 40. My fight started 40 years ago. I've been Black and gay my entire life. So just because these, we're bringing these issues to the forefront right now, and we're, the media is all over the George Floyd thing and the Breonna Taylor and all that type of stuff. That doesn't mean that this just started. It actually started years and years ago. So I've been angry, if you will, my entire life about these issues, but I don't need to, every few years when someone gets murdered or an unjust act happens, I don't need to stand up and say, I'm angry in this. I've been doing that my entire life because I've been fighting and battling it my entire life.
And Terry, so what about personally? You're successful. Obviously, you have a beautiful track record. You've been doing great things, right? But someone would look at you and say, it doesn't seem like you've been affected by it at all, by racism or anything like that, right?
How long is this show?
Yeah.
We don't have enough time.
No, but I have. And it's funny that you asked that specific question, because many people have reached out to me that I went to high school with, I grew up with. They're like, we didn't know any of this about you.
Exactly.
You were that person that everyone else came to and said, well, he has no issues. He has no problems. No, I was molested as a kid. I had to go to court at 15, testify and put the man in prison. No one really truly knew that was going on. No one knew that I had the most horrible relationship with my biological mother. I left home at 17. We just really went through a tumultuous relationship. And so no one really knew that, at 14, 15, 16 years old. And so I think it was about time that, again, I draw attention to those situations and let folks know that we all go through similar situations, and we really do need to talk about it. That's how people move past, having mental disorder and disease and those sorts of things, is really open up dialogue and connect on that level and say, it's okay that we've experienced these things. We need to figure out how to move past it, own it, and move past it.
That's huge. That is huge. Figure out how to move past it.
Yes.
A lot of my friends growing up here in the South and in Miami particularly, it was very frustrating because it was so far gone that it was not talking about it because it was just assumed. They were just tired.
Yeah.
I just don't want to have the conversation. So forget educate. I don't even want to educate.
Right.
I'm so over it because, like you said, you've been dealing with it, from day one.
From day one. Yeah.
So how do you think we move past it best?
I think we all sort of need to. I'm a big advocate for communication. I'm a big advocate for, that's having the tough conversations. If we sort of allow that uncomfortability to turn into comfortability, I think we can move past a lot of these issues. Someone last year when the book came out, I had a book reading at the Wilton Theater, the Foundry, and it was such a wonderful living. I didn't realize I was going to take away what I took away from that, because several people in the audience, when it came to Q&A, several people raised their hands and said, I'm not African American, I'm a lesbian, or I'm gay, or whatever, but I completely was able to connect with your relationship with your mother, your relationship with your biological father. I'm saying this aloud for the first time. I was raped as a little girl, so hearing those sorts of things, I said, this is what you were supposed to do. You were supposed to put out this book and put your life on display like this, to be a vessel for those who don't have the courage to stand up and say, I experienced this and I need to figure out how to move past it. So again, I say, let's just talk about it. Let's really get to the
It's therapeutic if nothing else.
Absolutely.
I got goosebumps. That's amazing. Congratulations. No, honestly. And how do you feel about someone speaking for you? Damian and I were having this conversation about when it is that we have the right to defend an African American, or when it is we have the right to speak on behalf of an African American. And we are obviously what people would call a person of color. So you would, but we pass white, right? We're white passing.
White passing, which that in and of itself is all, because in my younger days, I was person of color and I'd be like, I am?
Right.
White. And then when I'm like, okay, I'm a person of color, they're like, no, you're not. You're right. So, so what, but
it's tricky. It's tricky for us to speak on your behalf.
Part of that also is because for many white men, when these exchanges happen, it just completely shuts them down, not for a day, not for a week, but for a very long time. Because I think what a lot of people are trying to do as part of the conversation is say what they know about it.
Correct.
I know as gay people, we can relate to that too. Because we had to listen to a lot of crazy stuff and make it okay for them to ask us really personal questions.
Absolutely.
Right. And then we took it from there. But that was the foundation. But if you stand up and say, you can't speak for me because I'm black, when really they're in some weird way they're trying to make a connection.
Yes.
How do we help those situations?
I think you sort of have to set the foundation from the start of the conversation, saying, listen, this is going to be uncomfortable for everyone involved here. And that's okay. It's okay to ask a dumb question, a stupid question.
Yes.
It's okay to say, I don't actually know about this subject, or I don't know how to verbalize this, so I'm just going to say it. Hopefully I won't offend. Do the disclaimer thing on the front end. And also sort of know that you're having the conversation because everyone wants to be knowledgeable and understanding of what we experience and what we go through, and figure out how to be an ally and be someone that can be an advocate for us in the community. So I think if you really sort of identify it that way early on, then there might be a question you're going to be in your mind going, okay, really, did you just...
we were literally just
really?
We were literally just having this conversation.
We were just...
I was like, I've never spoken to someone like you.
Right.
And you're like, was that, which part of me you talk about?
Right. 100%. I totally agree. And I think that's how we get past that uncomfortable space. That's how we get past, okay, I don't know about it, but I want to be educated. During the BLM stuff last year, I actually had a few people reach out to me, call me on the phone from California and say, you and I have never really had this conversation. I don't know how to educate myself in order to go and educate my family, my friends that are all white. How do I do this? So I respect that. What I sort of tend to not necessarily have respect for is for those that continue to sweep it under the rug and act like it doesn't exist. That doesn't help us move forward as a society.
Well, and in a place like Miami, as you're talking and talking about all of this, I'm thinking, and I would love to do that about Cuba too, because it's a huge thing. And I would love to do that about gender. Yes. And I would love to do that about, when you really start thinking about it, and even more specifically within the LGBTQ space, our
trans community,
or elderly. Which are being kind of, there's just, it's almost like it would be great if there was almost a model in the making.
Definitely.
To kind of take it from there. I know with gay rights, at least, and especially decades ago, our big intent and our big push was to show that line that connects all of us.
Yes.
As a broader way of making the conversation easier for people.
Yes.
So I wonder if there also isn't something for Black activists to think about in terms of not weakening anything,
Mhm.
but broadening the discussion to almost indirectly make it happen in different ways.
I think the more representation that we have,
Mhm.
whether it's in social media, whether it's on the stage, this question was asked of me a few weeks ago on a panel discussion, how do we, get more diversity in this space, in the opera space, for example, and it's really just about, stepping outside of the comfort zone. It's about pushing the envelope and making sure that audiences, that other folks that are involved in the community, et cetera, understand that this is a normal thing, right? Like seeing a African American person play, someone that's traditionally a Caucasian role.
Yeah.
That should be a normal thing.
Yeah.
Right? Like we shouldn't be stuck in that space in 2021.
And I think it even goes further than that, because I don't think it reaches a certain, because I used to sing for the Florida Grand Opera as well, and some of my people in the chorus were from all walks of life.
Right.
It was the audience that we weren't reaching.
Absolutely.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like we had
That's
Blacks, we had the
very good
Asians,
point.
but in the audience it was all white Americans. It was all.
Absolutely.
It wasn't as diverse as we needed to be. How do we get into those neighborhoods to create that change? And I think that's the talk we have to have.
Definitely. And I think it's just more about normalizing and making it sort of like, I tend to say, I like to make it like, this is the hot place to be, the cool place to be.
Yeah.
Right. Like, so at 16, 17 years old, getting ready to go to college, I didn't know anything about opera. Was I singing? Yes. Was I singing in church and the Golden Church Boy? Absolutely. But I didn't know diddly squat about opera. And when they came to me and said, we want to offer you a scholarship, I said, who are you?
Right.
Like, what's opera?
What is opera?
What is opera? Like, I don't know what, but it couldn't have been the best thing to happen to me, because I realized there's a whole nother world out there that I had no idea about. Do I know about my African American, history and culture? Absolutely. But then I learned more. Wait, there's African American opera singers. There's the Three Tenors. There's Leontine Price. There's all these people I had no idea about. Why is this not in mainstream? Why are they not the popular folks? Right. So I think it's just really about us normalizing it and making that like the cool in sort of space to be in. That's what I think I like.
But is it possible to normalize a minority experience? You see what I mean? Like
I do.
At some point, I mean,
I do.
Well, it's only when
tricky.
It's only when people want. It's like when they go on vacation and they're like, "I want to do what the locals do." That's the only time that people want to immerse themselves in like Haitian food or something. You know what I mean?
when they're traveling.
So you have to. It's true. You have to make it cool. And I Damian and I have a lot of discussions about how we make this show cool enough for young children to watch, because nobody wants to hear about economics or LGBT rights in this serious manner, But if you make it fun, or you make it in a way where you can reach them for 30 minutes, and
then that's not our only demographic either, right? So we're also
exactly.
So we try to do a little bit of everything to at least involve people in that way.
Definitely.
Yeah. So what's next for you? And I mean, what's obviously you're changing the world one city at a time. So what's happening with Sunserve? Talk about Sunserve.
A lot is happening with Sunserve.
Mark Ketchum used to be there too.
Yes, absolutely. He retired last year, and so now we've got new leadership in there. As of December, we've got a new executive director, and we're sort of taking on a new approach with the leadership team at Sunserve. So there's the executive director, Gary Hensley. There's our chief of human resource officer, James Hips, and then myself as a development director. So we're leading the troops as a triad. It's us.
That's wonderful.
Well, you're changing it up, because I mean, we tried to do it with Geyocho, where our events were trying to be a little different. So fundraising was a little bit fun. You did a karaoke night, you did a gospel night. Like, what kind of inspired you to do that?
I'm all about bringing diversity to a community.
I'm
all about that. And, I've had the opportunity and been blessed really to develop great relationships on the drive, if you will, with local entertainers like Lenora J and Antonio, and just having conversations with folks. I'm like, well, what have we been doing here? What has this been, what's going on here, right? And on Christmas, I was watching Lenora and Antonio perform, and they sang a gospel duet, and she walked off stage, and I said, we need to talk.
I know she can sing.
She can sing. Absolutely.
I can't wait to see that.
And it's something that I've done before in the community in San Francisco. And I just said, I think this will be a moment in Wilton Manors where it's bringing community together. We've just all endured a crazy pandemic and been sort of confined in our homes. Let's get together and celebrate.
Yeah.
You know, I get that we are still in a pandemic and we have all these things still happening in our society, but we also still need to live life. We also still need to inspire and motivate and connect with each other. So that was the inspiration for that event.
And are you experiencing kind of any like political challenges? Like we've been in this nonprofit world for a little bit, Damian more than I, so he can tell you some stories. But it's always tricky to navigate those waters when you're really trying to make a difference in the community. There's 30 something nonprofits that are all after the same money. Like, do you find yourself, you know, challenged with that?
Definitely. I've spoken with a lot of nonprofit directors and executive directors and so forth. And, you know, we've all are experiencing the same challenges. You know, we're still in a pandemic. People aren't sure what's happening with funds and money. And, you know, people are tightening the purse strings. So how do we move past that? How do we get creative? You know, that's where I am. Like, I want to get back out in the community and let folks know, hey, we're here. We're taking care of our community, but we need your help to do that. I'm a firm believer, and it takes a village to raise a child.
It does.
So,
Totally agree.
We're all children at the end of the day.
Man.
So let's continue to help each other. Let's continue to support each other. And, you know, we're a beneficiary this year for the Florida AIDS Walk. So every single dollar raised is doubled by AIDS Healthcare Foundation. So it's so important at this point in time to really be giving those dollars so that way we can get as much as we possibly can from that organization.
So explain that. So every event that you fundraise or that you have a fundraiser for, your dollars are doubled.
Absolutely.
That's amazing.
For Florida AIDS Walk.
For Florida AIDS Walk. So everything that we've done in the last 90 days, all those funds are going directly to the Florida AIDS Walk.
No, that's fantastic. Talking about diversity, though, I wanted you to know Geyocho Festival, the actual festival, that's its premise. So it tries to look for those acts that are really popular in certain specific. Year one, when we opened with a theater troupe doing the Letters of Birmingham, Martin Luther King main stage, in Little Havana. Right. So these are the kinds of things where we're trying to bring, and then we bring heavy salsa that's not widely known at all in Miami-Dade County, but indigenous maybe to Cuba or other countries, and bring them up on stage. And then we try to introduce some queer elements and some other elements and mix it all up. And what's amazing about that festival, and we went from 17,000 to 80,000 in 4 years. What's amazing about it is what makes it are the people that show up.
That's right.
Because you've got, you know, your bears over here. You've got, you know,
the macho party with the bears. You have El Sancho with the lesbians. You have, but they're pockets of entertainment, almost like Epcot. You know, like that's a good way to describe it.
Right, you go like from one block to another, and you feel like you've been to many different places. So we get what you're talking about, and the way you feel about the opera in that way. You know, having that moment. I think that's what we call the magic of Geyocho, of that festival. It's that moment.
So we can have a Sunserve moment at the Geyocho Festival.
We welcome it. We welcome
here for it. Absolutely. And I think that's such an important component to all of this. Is I've had a lot of meetings in the last 90 days with different community leaders and folks. And one of the things that several of us have spoken about is how do we, I get that we're all sort of trying to move past the pandemic and businesses are trying to get their revenue back up and things of that nature. But how do we connect and work together to help each other's businesses? You know, we're fighting for the same dollars as nonprofits. Businesses are in bars. Well, we want people in ours. We want our clientele back, that sort of thing. But how do we really figure out how to get our revenue and things back up together?
I've always had an idea about that, and I think we all
don't say it out loud. No, I'm kidding.
I was gonna take that idea, right? I'm like, wait, I'm listening.
I have, and it's because I feel like as organizations, we're all in the same little puddle, you know, going for the same little puddle of water constantly. Absolutely. So instead of broadening our horizons in that way, meaning like go to places like we did an event last year in the youth fair, Way West Kendall, had never been done, you know, kind of an LGBTQ event. We partnered with a traditionally conservative organization, the Casanas of Little Havana, you know, work new partnerships. Like instead of just, it's us.
Outside of our bubble.
Right, outside of our bubble. And that really does help in expanding revenue.
Absolutely.
in everything, awareness, education,
Absolutely.
New context. So I think that's definitely one thing to consider, for us to just keep.
Completely agree.
Yeah, don't limit yourself to the LGBT or the gay.
Right, or the same donors that get hit on all the time.
Yeah.
It's the same list being passed, and they're sick of it.
And they're getting hit up by everybody.
Right. So they're sick of it.
Yeah.
They're sick of it. They hope to get a lunch out of it.
Right. Absolutely.
You know what else I was thinking, Terry, because you're like a volleyball star and a tennis competitor, so he's done a lot. So I was thinking we could do something with sports and have a dodgeball tournament or something outside the box like that, where you can partner up with a fitness facility.
Yes.
They can lend you, or they can take part of the entrance fee or something of that nature, which no one's ever doing.
Yeah.
No one does that anymore.
Absolutely. So we've got a possible in August gay golf tournament coming up. Yeah. So we've had some conversations with that group and the tennis folks. I have some folks that sit on one of my community advisory boards. They are involved in tennis as well. So they've made some connections and having conversations around getting us to do a big tennis tournament. And so, we're again, trying to think outside of the box.
And Terry, because you're new, I'll give you another little secret.
No, I love this.
Okay. Yeah. There is a very, very large population of people who don't manage English very well in South Florida. Specifically, I say Spanish dominant. Okay. So there's a very large Spanish dominant LGBTQ community that thrives. And it thrives under the radar, which is incredible. But these folks, and now I'm saying these folks are right. I'm already like, oh no, red flag. These folks, of which I am, can be one.
Right. Right. I already knew where you're going with that.
Now I have to all the footnotes.
Yeah.
So talented.
Yeah.
So talented. We include a large part of that community in the Carroza project that we do at Geyocho. And these are folks, because a lot of them come from Cuba, where you have nothing. And, from a straw, you make an amazing, right? So if you want to include in events and ideas and just this amazing energy, definitely remember that community, because it's LGBTQ people in that community. They don't link, which is really incredible, because that's another thing. A lot of the kind of traditional diversity words that work in the rest of the U.S., when they get here to South Florida, specifically Miami-Dade, because a few years ago, 10, 20, they wanted to create a canal and kind of push Miami-Dade, somewhere else. But these words like BIPOC, Black, Indigenous, people of color, here run into real problems, because you have a large population of people who are white, don't manage English all that well, don't consider a person of color, they're not Black, they're not Indigenous, they're not so what are they? So when they don't see themselves, or even queer and BIPOC, it's kind of like, well, but I'm cisgendered, I'm not I'm not non-binary, and so it just creates a lot of confusion, because other cities don't have the same demographics or populations. So I think that's also something for us to stay mindful about, that every place has its own kind of unique, and letting it define and learning from it is really a great way. It'll help with the fundraising, it'll help with everything else.
I absolutely agree.
That's definitely a Damian thing.
Yeah, it is.
It's not that I disagree with it, but he always thinks about the smaller people. And I say smaller people is a horrible way to say it, but
if you're gonna get
thinks of the people, I'm gonna get hit by that. But those people, the people in the neighborhoods that don't have the money to come out, or they don't see themselves in the flag, or they don't see themselves in these types of festivals and events, we try to think about. Damian in particular tries to think about, because I'm just not good at that. I'm not saying I don't want to, I'm just not good at it.
Well, because I worry about the money, and I worry about the opportunity that's going wasted. That's really the bottom line. I'm not doing a favor. These folks are very talented and they're very they're just untapped. That's one of the things that drives me nuts, right? When you get a diversity hire and they're actually really incompetent, they're just being hired because they're Latino or Black or a woman, and they do more damage with that than good, because then the whole organization is like, oh, you're so lucky. I get told in my organization, which I won't mention all the time, you're so lucky. You're Latino and gay. You're untouchable. That's not healthy. That's not the whole point of diversity.
Not at all.
It's kind of like, oh, you can do whatever you want. Me, white guy, I'm screwed, by the system.
Right.
So it's those kind of perspectives. And there's some truth in the fact that it isn't that hard. Folks are there. You just need to go look for them.
Absolutely.
If you're lazy, you don't want to go look for them.
Right.
Yeah. And you don't find them. And the lazy way out is just to do a diversity hire. Then Everybody's losing.
You know, it's also around race and ethnicity, and those are conversations that are sensitive and taboo.
Mhm.
So we don't tend to like to talk about those
Nope.
things. You know, it's funny that growing up, you know, one of the things that I learned is that the African American community, we tend to like to sweep things under the rug. I talk about that a lot in my book. And,
oh yeah, we do too.
right. See, here's what I also say. Us communities of color, we have a lot in common.
Yeah.
We have a lot in common.
Way more than we know.
Right, absolutely. But when we do that, we're doing ourselves a disservice. We're also doing the other communities a disservice. We're doing society a disservice because all they're able to do is continue to have sort of that narrow-minded mentality, and they're not exposed to these other communities like you were just mentioning. So if you have no exposure, no education, then how are you going to know, you know, how not to make that statement to you, right, in your organization? So yeah, I would love to figure out ways to get into the untapped communities and really sort of bring them to the forefront, celebrate them. I think all cultures and communities, but this is just me. I've lived abroad. I've lived in rural places. Like, I've been exposed to a lot. So I'm all about making sure that we all are celebrating each other.
Well, trust and believe that we are here to partnership with you and help you in any way that we can.
We're committed to this.
We have just 2 minutes left, so if you can tell, you know, people where to find you and
all over.
Yeah.
all over. Well, clearly
all over.
Tennis.
Yeah, volleyball, opera.
So yes, definitely Sunserve. The easiest, you know, place to reach me is sunserve.org. I'm on all social media platforms. Terry D Sings, Terry D Writes, on Facebook, of course. But really sort of look at our organization because, you know, with this pandemic, one of the things that I loved and one of the reasons why I signed on to the organization end of November, beginning of December, was simply because we did not lay off one single person during the pandemic.
Fantastic.
We implemented internal practices to make sure that we still served the community, something called telehealth, for example. So we may not be in person, but we're still making sure that we provide the services that people need in this community. So we're doing wonderful things, and obviously we still need, you know, community's help to keep that up. So find me anywhere.
That's fantastic. Terry, thank you very, very, very much for being here.
Thank you.
You can count on us as wonderful community partners. We look forward to working together for a long time. JC, thank you as always.
Oh, I'm always willing to be here.
Yeah.
Everyone, an ill-fitting shirt.
Everyone that's viewing out there, thank you very much for your support, and we'll catch you